like a sweet incense to the Lord. And it rose up. And I knew I could call forth the spotlights. It's like, call forth the worshipers. And as I saw these worship fires, hot spots pop up all over, it's like the sweet incense, the smoke of that began to just disintegrate the shell of this entity that had been there for a long time. That's all I knew. In the meantime, my friend who was with me was writing because the Lord was giving her a download. And as we landed, she looked out the window and she said, "Where are the mountains? It's flat here." She was from Montana. I was from Montana. It's flat here. I said, "Yeah, I've never been to Boston, but it's flat." She said, "No, the Lord told me to speak to the mountains." And she was searching the scriptures for a particular passage. And she found it later, and now she's an amazing lady. She's in New Zealand doing God's work in a whole different way. And we met together in New Zealand. We trained some people over there, and I said, "Sandra, do you remember what that scriptural passage was?" And she didn't remember, but I did some research, and it has to do with the book of Ezekiel, chapter 35. Speak to the mountains of Edom. And the Lord is telling the prophet Ezekiel to speak to the strongholds of the Edomites. So we know Esau is Edom. Esau represents to us south of mountains. He sold his birthright for a gold suit. So that's all we knew. No mountains to speak to, but we were supposed to call forth the seed and speak to the mountains, and so there was the assignment. And so we did some ministry there, and the hosts that were received it some host home, and we asked them about 2 weeks in if there was an intercessor for the region that we could talk to who felt we had word for the region. And they said, "Sure," so they took us to this intercessor. You may know Catherine Julio. Well, we met Catherine Julio in her lovely little home on a cold September evening. And she had a fire going in the fireplace, and she popped popcorn, and we had hot apple cider and we ate popcorn, and she said, so where are you ladies from?" And she looked at my friend Sandra, and Sandra said, "I'm from Montana." And Catherine said, "Really?" She looked at me and she said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Well, I live in Spokane Valley, but I'm from Montana. I love Montana. Montana's in my heart. I had just moved a couple of years before to come on staff at the Lighthouse, but it's just a couple hours away, so I go home in Montana." And she said, "Really?" She said, "The Lord told me when the Montanans came that revival would begin to break out in America." Woo! Yeah. So we're going, "Oh goodness, okay. Lord," and so we were talking about this. Actually, I was looking down eating popcorn, and out of my napkin, as she was saying, "The Lord said," when the Montanans came. And this napkin that was the popcorn was in was a sheaf of wheat, like the harvest of wheat. And I said, "Sandra, look at your napkin." And she looked at it, and we knew it was a confirmation, a harvest, the full harvest. And so we shared with Catherine what the Lord had said, to call forth the seed of the covenant. And Catherine listened, and she got up and reached in her pocket behind the chair that she was sitting on, and she pulled out a bottle, a medicine bottle, and she shook it, and she said, "These are wheat seeds from the heart of the nation." And the seeds were given to her by prophetic leaders that you would all know. The Lord said, "Gather seed, wheat seed, from the heart of this nation, and give it to Catherine, and I'll tell Catherine what to do with it." And she said, I've carried these seeds around for over a year. Now keep in mind, this is January of 2002. A few months before that, we were hit, 9/11. She's an intercessor for the nation. She had grieved and prayed for years and years over this nation, and she was in shock and in grief because of what was happening there. And she said she pretty much had stayed home from September on, but in December, she said just the month before, she had been at the Park Street Church, and she was doing a tour of the spiritual roots of Boston, and she was sharing with some people about history. There was another tour leader there, and there was a conversation about the Boston Tea Party and the American Revolution and the things that were birthed out of that church. And the church bells began to chime. It was noon. And the bells were playing for beautiful, for spacious skies, for amber waves of rain, from sea to shining sea. And she heard the Lord say, take those seeds and plant them in the graveyard at Paul Revere's grave. Who's over here? The watchman, the intercessor, the warrior, the revolutionary. And so she went out and dug through the snow into the ground and began to plant the seeds. And she said after she planted about half of the seeds, the Lord said, that's enough. I'll tell you where to plant the rest of them. So she had the rest of them in her bottle. Well, we were recognizing that this is so prophetic, but what does it mean? He said, it's such an amazing thing, but what does it mean? And so, in essence, what we did was we went downstairs into her little prayer room. Wow, the anointing in that room from all the prayers of the saints. We began to pray. And frankly, we were praying for her as an intercessor, representing all of the intercessors who prayed for this nation. And we're heartbroken for what was happening. We're heartbroken for 9/11. And we began to pray for her, that she'd be strengthened to keep on praying. And we saw that there was so much crushed wheat within her that she was literally birthing fresh bread within, but she was just so weary, and she had some amazing fresh bread there. And so, thank you. And so we prayed for our friend Catherine. And at one point, and we began to call forth this seed, the covenant. We began to recognize, of course, the covenant had to do with the covenant that God made with America, with the Pilgrims, with the Puritans, Mayflower Compact, Mayflower Covenant. I didn't know much. We've learned a lot more since, but we knew that God made a promise, the people made a promise, the churches in New England made a promise in the 16 and 1700s, and we'll talk about that promise, but it's like the seeds, God's promise, remained, and it still had life, and he was calling us forth as descendants, as a culmination of all times, to do what we promised to do in that covenant, and that is to love one another and to represent him well and be light in the darkness and to bring justice. I'll read the covenant here in a minute. But it's like the Lord put that in the seed, in the ground, even if the seed was alive in the ground, as the people, literally, who made the covenant were in the ground. There were descendants. There were descendants of the covenant. Well, anyway, we prayed, and we called forth, frankly, all of the seeds, the descendants of the covenant of the flesh and of the spirit to take a stand. And while we were praying, calling forth the seed and the fresh bread, I saw bread and more bread and different kinds of bread that was coming forth from Catherine, I think representing the fresh word of God that God is bringing forth through his intercessors, through his prophets. And I looked at her, and I think the picture's gone. The picture that was up on the wall. Catherine, of course, has white hair. Likely she was a blonde from before. She ended up in a bun. That's how I knew Catherine. But I looked at Catherine, and behind her on the wall were cross flags, the American flag and the Israeli flag. I said, "You love Israel?" She said, "Oh, I love Israel." And I said, "You're the one." See, we have a very good friend who's an artist, and 3 days after the falling of the towers, the attack on the towers, the Lord prompted her to draw this drawing. You see this woman crying with blonde hair, long blonde hair, and grieving. And underneath, she quoted, didn't even know that scripture was there. He is great. He will be gracious to you, America. He will surely be gracious to you on the day when the towers fall. I think I just quoted that a little bit, but over here on the left-hand side is the cross of Jesus on the hill. And down below there's the flow of blood, and there's a little child that's been aborted over on the right-hand side. Kind of hard to see. The American flag and the blood that's in the land because of abortion. And there's a few dollar signs there. We have sold out to the bands. And I said, "Catherine, you're the one that she drew representing intercessors for this nation." And we prayed for Catherine. We prayed hope for Catherine. Now, I've talked with Catherine. There's a whole bunch of things that go with this, but I've talked with Catherine, and this, I'll just say the seeds have yet been planted. But I talked to her just a little while ago, and I said, "Catherine, what's the Lord been saying about the rest of the seeds?" And she said, "You would ask me that." It's coming. We need to pray. We need to encourage our intercessors. We need to encourage our intercessors. I want to encourage you as intercessors and encourage one another, because God hears our prayers. There's a culmination. Every seed, every prayer that's been prayed falls to heaven. God has the last word here. Yes. While we were there in New England with Catherine in that few days, a word was released in the Boston area about revival fire that's going to break out. Going to break out across I-90 and go across from sea to shining sea. And I said, "Gosh, we've got an I-90 that runs right past us." Well, yeah, it's from sea to it goes from Boston right past, right where our office in Post Falls, Idaho is 1 block off of I-90 at the intersection of I-90 and 95. Now, recently there's been reminder of a few words about, angels at the crossroads, and 5 angels and five highways. Jeff Jansen released a word. I encourage you to get online and look at it, because, oh my gosh, it's just we're on prophetic overload, frankly. It's so amazing, but that whole thing about across I-90, we researched it then and there. You know, the number 90 means liberty, freedom. And so the Lord is about to traverse this nation and set us free. And so we later visited here, Plymouth. They brought us here. We saw the reproduction of the original Mayflower, we read the compact, we understood a little more the aspect of the covenant the Lord was referring to. And he was calling us to call forth to maturity the fullness of the seeds and the promise that the Pilgrims made. We went to Boston Harbor. We went to Faneuil Hall. And we got to see where they began to write the Declaration of Independence. Is that right, at Faneuil Hall? And I was deeply impacted by the history. I've never been here from Montana. Originally from LA, but the young woman with my husband, we moved to Montana. And so I was really impacted by being in amazing historic places. While I was there, I was frankly deeply disturbed by the grasshopper on the top of Faneuil Hall. Yeah. And I said, why a grasshopper? Why not a horse or a rooster? And then he explained that I didn't know they had a meaning. It's the meaning of the Boston Harbor, the identifying weather vane to indicate this is the Boston Harbor. Well, we finished our work, we went home. Oh, by the way, we prayed for this, to call forth the seed of the covenant, and everything we understood that to be at that point. We needed to leave, and we gave Catherine the mandate to speak to the mountains. We didn't know what that meant. We didn't have an understanding, but it's your region, speak to the mountains. And we left that with her in 2002. I haven't been home very long, maybe 3 or 4 days. In the middle of the night, I'm sorry, I'm kind of standing right behind the pillar here. In the middle of the night, the Lord woke me up and said, what are you going to do about that grasshopper? And I said, what grasshopper? And I remembered the grasshopper on top of Faneuil Hall. And he reminded me that we had called forth the seed. And there was a devourer just ready to once again devour the seed. And we needed to speak to that grasshopper. So I called Catherine, and I said, Catherine, you need to speak to the grasshopper. And from Washington, and from wherever Catherine was, we spoke to that grasshopper and said, no more devouring this nation. Okay, so that was January of 2002. Fast forward. The fall of 2002, something also very significant happened to me as I was ministering to a lady who had lived in Israel for many years as a missionary, and she had come for ministry just to simply get a fill-up, and some wounding in ministry. Do you ever get wounded in ministry? Yeah, she's like, it's me. So anyway, it's a battle. You know it's a battle out there, right? Okay, good. So anyway, I prayed with this lady and finishing up, and she kept saying, Israel needs this, Israel needs this. And I said, every nation, every person needs sanctification, transformation. We need our hearts healed and transformed that we can love well and fulfill our destiny. And in the midst of just sharing, I'll just kind of come down to this, is that in the midst of Israel needs this, the Spirit of the Lord in the presence of the Father came in my little office, no bigger than this, out in the woods. And we were on our faces because the Father was there. And I'll tell you what, it was terrifying and exhilarating. And I heard the voice of the Father say, you must take this message to Israel. He said, you hold the keys to generational repentance and reconciliation between the sons of Abraham. And I'll finish what he said, then I'll explain some things. But you hold the keys to generational repentance and reconciliation between the sons of Abraham. He said, my children come to know me through my Son and love me. But they hate each other. And that's a grief to my heart. And he laid that grief on my heart. Because he's a good, good father. And he loves each one of us, and he longs that we would love each other. And so I recognize that what he was saying was, the sons of Abraham literally, yes. Abraham made a covenant, or God made a covenant with Abraham. And he made a covenant that his sons would shine as the multitude, numbers of many of the stars of the sky and the sands of the sea, and they would shine, having to have to do with sanctification and light bearers. And so I knew it had to do with Israel, and it had to do with Ishmael, Isaac, and the sons of Keturah, and all of the sons of Abraham. Because he had many children. Literally by the flesh, but also the sons of Abraham by the Spirit.
Yes.
And look at the animosity. There's been thousands of years between the sons of Abraham in the flesh. But look at us. Do we love each other? And God is saying, will you please just love each other? That He's wanting reconciliation between us, that we would love one another. So there was that. Well, there's the call. And then there was a battle. And you know what? It just didn't happen. It just wasn't happening that I would go. It was like I knew that I was to go as part of the message that God gave John and Paula for reconciliation between people. We tried. It just wasn't happening. It was about to kill me, actually. It was really hard because, I told the leadership, every leader we had, we have to go to Israel. And it just wasn't happening. And my hope was, the burden of the Lord, when it's there, if you got it, He's not going to lift it up till it's finished. But if you don't have it, you don't get it. So, okay, 2008, I returned to New England to do a seminar in Boston and in New London, and up there at Streams headquarters and so on. And so I had an occasion, I had an empty 3 days before I had to fly out. And so I called Catherine, I said, can I come spend time with you? She said, of course. We had the greatest girl talk, it was really cool. And I got an opportunity to ask her then, 6 years later, what happened about Speak to the Mountains? And she said, a group of ladies, and she went up to the mountains. I think it's in Maine, I'm not quite sure, I think it's Maine. And she said they were just interceding for the nation, and the other ladies were going to, early one morning, go out for a walk, and she really felt to stay, and just to pray. And as the sun was rising, it was like all across the tops of the snow-covered mountains, it was on fire, because the sun rise. It was like the fire burst forth on the mountains. And the Lord said, call fire down on the presidential office in America. He was saying, call the sanctifying fire down on the leadership of the office of the president. This was in October of 2008. And that's the White Mountains. That's where all the presidential names of the different mountains. And the Lord was saying, sanctify the positions here. And frankly, that was just it's just after Mr. Obama was elected as a president of the United States. She spoke to the mountains. And I looked up presidents of the White Mountains of New Hampshire. It's New Hampshire. I don't know my geography that well. That was in 2008. Wikipedia said these mountains are notorious for having the worst, most unpredictable weather on Earth. Isn't that something? Sanctifying, transforming. 2010, the mandate of Israel still remained deep within me. Wasn't happening. I went to John Sanford, founder of Elijah House, good friend, love him, he loves us. And I said, John, I can't bear the weight of this anymore. It's not happening. They're not getting it. We must take the message to Israel. And he said, don't wait for Elijah House anymore. Just go. Just go on your own. He said, but I command you not to go alone. He's a good papa. He commands you not to go alone. But ask the Lord, what's his strategy for going? And I went, duh.
Need a strategy.
For 8 years, I never even thought to ask how. And so he prayed for me. He prayed open doors. He said, ask the Lord how to do it. Next morning, I'm out for a walk. In September of 2010, and I said, okay, Lord, what's your strategy? And immediately, like he'd been waiting for me to ask him the strategy for a million years, he said, it's a 3-way strategy. First 2, then 8, then an international team. Okay, Lord, who are the 2? He said, you and Sarah. Now, Sarah and I we love each other. We've been friends for years. We're both widows, so we've been bound in that. Sarah was somewhat new to the ministry of Elijah House, within 4 years, I think, something like that. I was delighted. I mean, love Sarah, but I said, Lord, you are giving the mother of all assignments to get the sons of Abraham to get along to 2 widows.
Well, that's the way it works.
And he didn't even, not many money, not many wines. We got to get that needle pointed over our door, you know. And the Lord didn't even answer my hello, us. He said, I'm sending Sarah because she has a shepherd's heart. And I highly value shepherd's hearts in Israel. Yeah. And then he gave me, there's a team of 8, and there's an international team, and that's yet to come. So, but
We're going, Jackie.
what happened there from that point is that the ministry had an invitation to go, but that was for the ministry, and anyway, it ended up not happening. And then, frankly, soon after that, the Lighthouse started struggling financially, and they laid us off in 4 months later. Mm-hmm. The Permanent Street Department, yeah, who asked us to just start an independent ministry for the purpose of receiving people who were requesting prayer ministry and to do some teaching, and they would downsize, and they would focus on products and so on. And so, we went ahead and, in the downsizing, we told them it's going to be all right. We know the Lord is calling us to do this. But we have a call to Israel, and so we're going to go. We're going to dedicate this ministry basically to Israel. And the Lord had also said, to raise up an army. He'd been telling us for a couple months before even all that happened. Go raise up an army of lovers who will bring in the harvest. Unlock hearts to love. He said, you are transformed hearts ministries. You are to bring my sanctification into people's hearts, transform their hearts, unlock their hearts to love. Raise up an army of lovers who will bring in the harvest, and go raise up an army of medics who will skillfully carry the hearts of the wounded.
Wow, medics.
That's our mandate. January 2011, we began that process. Sometime around that time, the Lord said to me to take your my oldest grandson, Keenan, to Washington, D.C., and show him the spiritual roots of this nation. Whole other story. We got Jackie in 2010, late 2010. She had just moved from Vermont here to pray in the womb of this nation.
Amen.
I said, can we come and join you in that and give the next generation an understanding of who we are? This is all a prophetic journey, so that's what we did. Amazing, amazing thing. And in the process of that, Jackie kindly arranged for us to get a spiritual tour of Boston for Keenan and for the rest of us. But what are the roots of our nation? We're just so impacted. We are so blessed as a nation to have this kind of a foundation.
Yeah.
But the Lord said when we went to Boston, that I was to go back to Faneuil Hall and speak to that grasshopper. Okay, so Chris Otto gave us this tour. He said, where do you want to go? And I said, we want to see everything that you feel is important, but we need to go to Faneuil Hall. He said, really? And I said, yeah, I'm supposed to talk to the grasshopper. And so we did this amazing tour. We got to Faneuil Hall, and Jackie was there. Keenan was 13 at the time, and we knew the Lord was directing this whole thing. But anyway, we were sitting there, and we were like, okay, Lord, what do you want me to say to this grasshopper? You know?
Let me just say, for those who don't know, that Faneuil Hall has a grasshopper on the top of it, and it used to have money in it back in the early days, and they would steal it, and then they brought it back, and it got stolen again, and I think that was the, yeah. So that, it's on top of Faneuil Hall, that grasshopper. It's a, what do you call those things?
Weathervane.
Weathervane.
It's a weathervane.
Yeah, just in case you say, what grasshopper is she talking about?
It's a grasshopper on top of the put it into me to speak to that grasshopper. And there's been a shift, a transformation. That represents Joel's True's army, the grasshopper. Joel's True army, they're like locusts, grasshoppers, and every place they go, there's fire everywhere. And he said this is a Joel True generation, a Joel True season. My grandson, 13 years old, coming into this, he is part of that. There's a whole thing there, but it's like there's a shift. No more stealing. That there is an army rising up who will be fearless and will take back this land for us. And so that's what we did when we were at Faneuil Hall in 2011. A couple months later, we came back to Natick because we were asked by John Thomas to come. I've known John for a while. He's the pastor of the Bridge Metro West. He said, I know that the Lord is saying that revival is about to happen in New England, and that we are a forerunner church, and I want my people's hearts prepared to follow what God tells them to do. He said, I don't want them, I just want their hearts submitted to the Lord. And so we came to the Bridge Metro West, and we shared some things. But before we left, and we ministered to the leadership there for several weeks, they were very willing to let the Lord just do the work to prepare them. While we were there, John Thomas, the Lord had been saying to me about calling forth the burning ones. And John Thomas is a burning one.